For many people, the Royal Guard is just a group of soldiers standing still, dressed in bright red uniforms with tall black hats. They seem like statues, always serious, always silent. But behind those stiff uniforms and the strict rules, there is a very different story. There is a side of the Royal Guard that most people never see. It is the story of real people with real feelings, kindness, and moments that show their true humanity. James had been a Royal Guard for more than 10 years. He was tall, strong, and always stood perfectly still during ceremonies. To many, he was just one of the many guards who protected the royal palace. But James was more than that. He was a person who cared deeply about others. He remembered why he became a guard in the first place, not just to follow orders but to serve with honor and kindness. Every day, James put on his uniform with great pride. It was not an easy job. He had to stand still for hours, no matter the weather. Whether it was cold, hot, or raining, James stayed focused. People passed by. Some stopped to take pictures, some waved, and some even tried to make the guards laugh or smile. But James kept his face serious. It was part of the job to look strong and serious. Yet inside, he often felt more than just duty. One of James's favorite memories was from a warm summer day. The royal palace was full of visitors from all over the world. Children ran around excited to see the guards. One little girl, about 5 years old, got separated from her parents in the crowd. She started crying loudly, scared and alone. James noticed her immediately. Even though he was supposed to stand still and not move, he couldn't just watch the little girl cry. Slowly, he bent down on one knee, careful to stay calm and still as possible. He smiled gently and spoke softly to the girl. "It's okay. I will help you find your parents," he said in a calm voice. The girl looked at him, stopped crying, and nodded. James carefully took her hand and guided her through the crowd. Within a few minutes, they found her parents. They were so thankful, their faces full of relief. This small moment showed that even though the guards had to follow strict rules, they also had hearts full of kindness. James didn't do this for attention or praise. He did it because he truly cared. For him, this was the real meaning of being a royal guard, not just standing tall, but being there for the people. Another time, during a very cold winter morning, James saw a group of tourists waiting to see the royal guards change. Among them was a young boy holding his mother's hand tightly. The boy looked very tired and cold. James wanted to help, but he had to stay in his place. Instead, he gave the boy a small smile and a nod. The boy smiled back shyly, feeling comforted by the guard's kindness. Behind the scenes, James and the other guards had their own way of helping each other through tough days. When a guard was feeling sick or tired, the others would quietly encourage him or her. They shared jokes and whispers and helped each other with small tasks during long hours. This brotherhood made their difficult job easier and gave them strength. Though they did not show it in front of the crowd, the royal guards were people with hopes, dreams, and feelings, just like everyone else. They missed their families during long shifts. They celebrated small victories, like a visitor's smile or a quiet thank you from someone in need. James often thought about how many people only saw the guards as statues or symbols, not as real people. He wanted to change that view. He wanted people to know the real story behind the uniform, the story of kindness, patience, and courage. One day, a young woman approached the line of guards. She held a camera and asked politely if she could take a picture with one of them. James agreed, and they both smiled for the photo. Afterward, the woman told James that seeing his kindness inspired her. She said she would tell her friends that royal guards were more than just soldiers. They were people who cared deeply. This made James feel proud. Not because of the photo, but because his true self had been seen and appreciated. The royal guard's job was hard and often thankless, but it was full of moments that showed their true hearts, moments when they reached out quietly, helped someone in need, or just shared a simple smile. These moments were the real story of the royal guards. Stories of people who stood tall, not just with their bodies but with their hearts. On a chilly winter morning, the royal palace grounds were covered with a light dusting of snow. The air was crisp and most people hurried by to keep warm. The royal guard stood silently, dressed in their thick red coats and tall black hats, standing tall and proud as usual. Among them was James, the veteran guard who had served for many years. But this day would be different from most others. As James stood in his usual spot near the palace gates, he noticed a man quietly walking along the street. The man was old, with a worn-out coat and tired eyes. He looked cold and hungry. James recognized him as one of the many homeless people who sometimes appeared near the palace, hoping to find help or food from kind strangers. The man's name was Thomas, a veteran who had once served his country but had fallen on hard times. James watched as Thomas sat on a bench near the gate, wrapping his thin hands around a small, almost empty cup. He was quietly asking for some spare change from passers-by, but most people ignored him or walked quickly past. James's heart ached as he saw the man shiver in the cold. Normally, the royal guards were not allowed to speak to or interact with people during their duty. They had strict rules to follow, and their main job was to protect the palace and maintain order. But James felt something inside him that told him he needed to do more. He thought about Thomas's service to the country and how, despite everything, the man had no warm meal or shelter. During a short break, James quietly stepped away from his post. He went inside the palace kitchen, where staff were preparing food for the day. He asked if he could have a sandwich and a warm drink, explaining that he wanted to help someone in need. The kitchen staff agreed with kind smiles and quickly prepared a simple meal for James to take outside. Back at the gate, James approached Thomas carefully. He did not want to scare the man or make him feel uncomfortable. With a gentle voice, James said, "Here, take this. It's warm and should help you on this cold day." Thomas looked up, surprised to see the guard offering kindness instead of ignoring him. He took the sandwich and drink with shaking hands and smiled faintly. For a moment, the two men sat together on the bench. James did not speak much, just stayed with Thomas, sharing a quiet moment of warmth. It was a small act, but it meant a lot to both of them. Thomas felt seen and cared for, and James felt a deep sense of purpose beyond his usual duties. Word of James's kindness spread quietly among the palace staff and other guards. Some were surprised that he had broken the usual rules, but many admired his courage and heart. It reminded them that behind the strong uniforms were people who cared deeply about their community and each other. This small gesture became a story, repeated many times in the palace halls, a story about how one man's kindness could make a difference, even in a place known for strict rules and traditions. It showed that the royal guards were not just statues standing still, but people ready to help when it mattered most. James continued his duty with the same seriousness, but now he carried a quiet confidence. He knew that sometimes the greatest honor came from small acts of kindness, and he hoped that others would follow his example, showing compassion whenever they could. On another occasion, a young woman named Emily visited the palace with her grandmother. Emily was a student studying history, and she dreamed of becoming a writer. She was fascinated by the royal guards and wanted to learn more about their lives. When she saw James, she noticed something different about him, a softness behind his strong gaze. Emily asked if she could speak to him after his shift. To her surprise, James agreed. They sat together near the palace garden, where James shared stories about his experiences. He told her about the rules, the training, and the moments that made his job meaningful. Emily listened carefully, realizing that the royal guards had lives full of stories that were rarely told. Inspired by James's kindness and honesty, Emily decided to write an article about the real lives of royal guards. She wanted people to know that behind the uniforms were men and women who faced challenges, showed courage, and cared deeply for others. Her article soon reached many readers, opening a new window into the hidden world of the guards. Meanwhile, Thomas, the homeless veteran, found more support. After James's small act of kindness, some palace staff and local volunteers offered help, providing food, shelter, and medical care. Thomas began to rebuild his life slowly, thanks to the attention and care sparked by a simple sandwich and warm drink. This story of kindness did not end at the palace gates. It spread through the community, reminding everyone that no matter how busy or strict life seemed, there was always room for compassion. It showed how small, quiet actions could change lives in ways people never expected. James never sought recognition for what he did. For him, it was just part of being human, but his actions inspired many, reminding everyone that kindness is one of the strongest forces in the world. Even in a world filled with rules and duties, there was always a moment for a gentle heart to shine. The royal guards continued their watch over the palace, standing tall and proud. But now, many of them carried a new understanding, that their role was not only to protect the palace but also to protect the kindness and humanity within themselves and the people around them. It was a bright and sunny summer afternoon at the royal palace. The air was warm, and the palace gardens were full of visitors from all over the world. Many tourists had gathered to watch the famous changing of the guard ceremony, a tradition that attracted crowds daily. Among the royal guards standing tall and proud was Sarah, a young guard who had recently joined the team. Though new, Sarah took her job very seriously. She was proud to serve and was ready to face any challenge that came her way. As the ceremony began, people cheered quietly, cameras flashed, and the guards marched in perfect rhythm. Sarah focused on every step and movement, her eyes sharp and alert. Suddenly, a shout came from the crowd. A young tourist had collapsed. The crowd gasped and parted quickly as the young man fell to the ground, unconscious from heat exhaustion. Sarah's training immediately took over. She rushed forward quickly, moving through the crowd with calm and confidence. The tourist was pale and sweating, showing signs of serious distress. Without hesitation, Sarah knelt beside him and checked his pulse. She signaled to other guards to call for medical help. While waiting for the medical team, Sarah gently lifted the young man's head and loosened his collar to help him breathe easier. She spoke softly to him, hoping to keep him awake. The crowd watched quietly, impressed by her quick action and calmness under pressure. The medical team arrived within minutes and took over. They thanked Sarah for her fast response and praised her for staying calm during the emergency. The young tourist slowly regained consciousness and was soon taken to a nearby hospital for further care. News of Sarah's actions spread quickly. Several visitors who had witnessed the event shared videos and stories online. People praised Sarah for going beyond her duties and showing true care for the public. The story touched many hearts and brought a new respect for the royal guards, who were often seen only as symbols of ceremony and tradition. Sarah, however, remained humble. For her, this was just part of being a guard. Protecting the royals was important, but protecting the people was just as much her responsibility. She often said, "We stand here not just to guard the palace, but to guard the safety and well-being of everyone around us." This event changed how many visitors saw the royal guards. No longer were they just distant figures in red coats. They were heroes in their own quiet way, ready to act when danger came, willing to put themselves at risk to help others. After the incident, Sarah received messages of thanks from people all over the world. Some wrote letters, others sent emails, and many left comments on social media. These messages gave her a deep sense of pride and motivation to continue serving with dedication. But Sarah's story was not just about one rescue. It was also about the everyday moments when the guards showed kindness and care. On another day, Sarah noticed an elderly couple struggling to find their way through the palace gardens. They looked confused and worried. Without waiting for orders, Sarah approached them with a warm smile and offered help. She guided them to the nearest visitor center and stayed with them until they were comfortable. This simple act meant a lot to the couple, who later wrote to the palace thanking Sarah for her kindness. These small moments, away from the public eye, showed the true spirit of the royal guards. The story of Sarah also inspired her fellow guards. Many began to share their own stories of helping visitors, supporting each other, and facing challenges together. The guards realized that their role was more than just standing still or marching. It was about being a part of the community and making a positive difference. One day, during a quiet moment between ceremonies, Sarah spoke with James, the veteran guard who had served for many years. They talked about their experiences, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made their jobs meaningful. James told Sarah that every small act of kindness made the long hours and strict discipline worthwhile. Sarah listened carefully, feeling grateful to have such a mentor. She knew that being a royal guard was about more than just ceremony. It was about honor, courage, and heart. As the sun set over the palace, Sarah stood tall with her fellow guards. The ceremony had ended, but their duty continued. They were ready to protect, to serve, and to care, no matter what challenges came their way. The story of Sarah's rescue became a symbol of the royal guard's dedication to more than just their uniforms and routines. It showed that behind the discipline and tradition were people who cared deeply and acted bravely. For the visitors, seeing Sarah in action changed how they saw the palace and its guards. They no longer saw a distant tradition but a living, breathing group of people ready to help in times of need. And for Sarah, every day brought a new chance to serve with pride, to stand tall and to be part of something greater than herself. Her story was a reminder that sometimes, The most unforgettable moments happen when kindness meets courage in the face of unexpected challenges. Life as a Royal Guard was not easy. The job demanded long hours, strict rules, and complete focus. Yet beyond the bright uniforms and serious faces, there was a special kind of friendship that grew between the guards. This friendship was more than just a work connection. It was like family. The guards spent many hours together during their shifts. They stood side by side in all kinds of weather: rain, heat, cold, and snow. Over time, they got to know each other's stories, dreams, and struggles. They shared jokes and whispers, supported each other when things got tough, and celebrated small moments of happiness together. One guard, Michael, was especially close to James. Michael was younger but had a kind heart and a good sense of humor. They often talked about their families, their hopes for the future, and the challenges they faced on the job. Michael admired James's experience, and James appreciated Michael's energy and positivity. One difficult day, the team learned that one of their fellow guards, Emma, had lost her mother suddenly. Emma was devastated. She had always been strong and serious on duty, but this news shook her deeply. The other guards wanted to help, but they didn't know how. James took the lead. He gathered the team quietly and suggested they support Emma in any way they could. They decided to give her time off and made sure she knew she was not alone. The guards sent flowers and wrote kind messages, showing their care in simple but meaningful ways. When Emma returned to work, the team welcomed her with open arms. They helped her through the hardest days, reminding her that she was part of their family. Their support gave Emma strength and comfort she desperately needed. This experience brought the guards even closer together. They realized that their bond was not just about working side by side, but about standing together through life's hardest moments. They were there not only as colleagues but as friends who could rely on each other. Besides tough times, the guards also enjoyed happy moments together. They celebrated birthdays, shared meals, and took time to laugh during breaks. These moments made their long hours more bearable and created memories they cherished. James often said that the camaraderie among the guards was one of the best parts of his job. It helped him stay strong during difficult times and reminded him that he was not alone. This feeling of belonging made every challenge easier to face. The Royal Guards also learned to respect and appreciate their differences. They came from different backgrounds, ages, and experiences, but their shared commitment to the job united them. They listened to each other's stories and learned from one another, building trust and respect. One evening, after a long day, the guards gathered in a quiet corner of the palace grounds. They talked about their dreams beyond the uniform, what they hoped for their families, their futures, and the world outside the palace walls. These conversations showed a side of them few people saw: hopes, fears, and the simple wish for a better life. Despite their strong bond, the guards knew the importance of professionalism. They kept their duties and emotions balanced carefully. But when the workday ended, they allowed themselves to be real people with real feelings. This balance was important. It helped them stay focused on their work while still caring for each other. It was this combination of discipline and compassion that made the Royal Guards unique. The story of their friendship spread quietly among palace staff and visitors who noticed the guards supporting one another. Many admired how, despite the serious nature of their work, the guards found joy and comfort in their team. James often reflected on how far they had come as a group. From strangers in uniform to a close-knit family, their journey was filled with stories of kindness, strength, and love. He believed that this bond was what truly made the Royal Guards special. It was not just the uniforms or ceremonies, but the hearts that beat beneath them. And so every day the guards continued to stand tall, not just as protectors of the palace, but as protectors of each other. They faced the challenges of their demanding job with courage, knowing they had a family beside them. This story of friendship and support reminded everyone that even in the most formal and serious jobs, there is always room for kindness, care, and connection. Years had passed since James first joined the Royal Guards. Looking back, he often thought about the many moments that made his long service worthwhile. It wasn't the grand ceremonies or the shining medals that stayed in his memory the most. It was the small, quiet moments that truly showed what honor and duty meant. Every morning, James put on his uniform with pride, ready to stand tall and steady. But beyond the strict rules and the watchful eyes of visitors, there were times when kindness and warmth shone through. These moments were what made being a royal guard more than just a job. They made it a calling. James remembered the times when children would approach the guard lines with wide eyes and shy smiles. Sometimes he would catch their gaze and give a small nod or a gentle smile. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to those children. For many, the Royal Guard was a symbol of history and strength, but also of kindness and friendliness. On one occasion, a little boy got lost during a busy event. His face was full of worry as he looked around for his parents. James, noticing the boy's distress, quietly stepped out of line to help. He crouched down and spoke softly to the boy, offering comfort and assurance. After a few minutes, James guided the boy through the crowd to find his grateful parents. That small act of kindness stayed with James, reminding him that protecting people was as important as guarding the palace itself. There were also times when visitors, overwhelmed by the beauty of the palace and the tradition of the guards, thanked James and his colleagues with words and smiles. Though the guards rarely responded, these moments created a silent connection between them and the people they served. James also remembered times when he helped visitors who were confused or needed assistance. Whether it was giving directions or helping someone carry their bags, these small acts of kindness made the palace experience better for everyone. James believed that honor was shown not only in standing still or marching perfectly, but in these everyday moments of care. But it wasn't just the visitors who mattered. James thought often about his fellow guards. Together, they shared long days and difficult duties, but they also shared laughter, stories, and support. They celebrated birthdays quietly, encouraged each other during hard times, and worked as a team. James felt proud of the brotherhood among the guards. This bond was a source of strength that helped them through tough days. He believed that without this friendship, the job would have been much harder. As the years went by, James saw many changes, new guards joining, old ones leaving, and the world around the palace evolving. Yet some things remained the same. The sense of duty, the pride in the uniform, and the heartfelt moments continued to define the royal guards. One quiet evening, as the sun was setting behind the palace, James stood at his post and reflected on his journey. He thought about all the times when kindness had made a difference, whether it was helping a lost child, comforting a visitor, or simply sharing a smile. These moments were the true heart of his service. James understood that honor was not just about ceremonies or appearances. It was about respect, kindness, and courage. It was about standing tall, not only in posture but in character. As he looked around at the palace grounds, James felt a deep sense of gratitude. He was thankful for the opportunity to serve, to protect, and to be part of something greater than himself. More than anything, he was proud to be a royal guard who carried not only a uniform, but also a heart full of kindness. These heartfelt moments, often unseen by the public, were the real story of the royal guards. They showed that behind the discipline and tradition were people who cared deeply about their duty and the people they served. And so, as the stars began to shine in the night sky, James stood quietly at his post, ready to serve another day. His heart was full, knowing that every small act of kindness helped keep the spirit of honor alive.